In Cartagena, the coastal paradise of Colombia, the air was thick with music, laughter, and the smell of roses. Camila Rojas, a 29-year-old event planner known for her elegance and charm, had just married her longtime boyfriend, Andres Morales, a successful restaurant owner. To everyone watching, they were the perfect couple. Beautiful, ambitious, and madly in love, Camila had spent months planning every detail of her wedding. She handpicked the venue, designed the flowers, and even wrote the vows herself. "I promise to be your peace, not your storm," she told Andres in front of 200 guests. He smiled and said, "You've always been both." For 3 days, life felt like a dream. They danced on the beach, took pictures under the moon, and shared quiet dinners that felt like forever. But behind Camila's radiant smile was a woman who had learned not to trust easily. Her last relationship had ended in betrayal, and Andres had once been part of that circle of friends. She told herself he was different. She wanted to believe in love again. On the third night, while Andres slept, Camila's phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. The text said, "You should know where your husband really is tonight." Her heart froze. She opened the attached picture. It was Andres, half naked, in a hotel room with another woman. The date stamp said 2 hours ago. At first, she refused to believe it. She told herself it must be old or edited. But the bed sheets in the photo were the same ones, from a hotel she had recommended for wedding guests. Her breath shortened. Her chest burned. The world that had felt like a fairy tale just hours ago now felt like a cruel joke. She called Andres's number again and again, no answer. Then she checked his location through the phone-sharing app they'd set up before the wedding. It confirmed her worst fear. He was still at that hotel. Camila didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there, staring at the photo until the sun began to rise. Somewhere between heartbreak and rage, something inside her quietly broke. Camila drove through the narrow streets of Cartagena at dawn, her wedding ring still on her finger. The city was waking up, fishermen pulling nets from the sea, children running barefoot through the alleys, but for her, everything felt dead. She parked her car a few blocks away from the hotel. She walked inside calmly, wearing sunglasses and a white shawl that still smelled like her wedding perfume. The receptionist recognized her from the wedding party but didn't say a word as she headed to the elevators. Her heels clicked against the marble floor like the countdown of a clock. Room 304. That was the location. The elevator doors opened, and she stepped out. Her hands were trembling, but her face was calm, too calm. When she knocked, there was no answer. She tried the handle. It was unlocked. Inside, the smell of cheap wine and perfume filled the air. Clothes were scattered across the floor. On the bed, Andres and a younger woman, Valeria, a 23-year-old waitress from his restaurant, were asleep, tangled together. Camila froze at the doorway, her mind spinning, her breath shallow. For a moment, she thought of leaving quietly, pretending she never saw it. But then Andres stirred, opened his eyes, and whispered, "Camila?" That single word broke her. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She walked over to the nightstand where Andres's phone was buzzing. On the screen was a message he had just sent Valeria. "She's too perfect to see it coming." Her fingers clenched around the phone. Something snapped, something that had been breaking for years. The rage that followed wasn't loud. It was cold, surgical, absolute. Minutes later, guests nearby reported hearing glass shattering and a woman screaming. When hotel staff forced their way in, the room was a scene of horror: overturned lamps, broken wine bottles, and blood on the white sheets. Camila was gone. 2 days later, Camila turned herself in at a small police station outside Medellin. She was calm, almost detached. The officer who took her statement said she spoke as if describing someone else's story. Didn't plan it, she said. I only went to see if it was true. But when I saw them together, I stopped being human for a moment. Her lawyer tried to plead insanity, but psychiatrists said she was fully aware of her actions. She simply didn't care. The trial became a media sensation across Colombia. Headlines called her the Bride of Vengeance. Some people saw her as a monster. Others called her a victim of betrayal who lost her mind in heartbreak. During the trial, the prosecutor asked her, "Do you regret what you did?" Camila looked up and said softly, "I regret trusting him. I regret thinking love means forgiveness." There was silence in the courtroom. In prison, Camila began writing letters to her mother. She wrote about the ocean, about love, and about how betrayal changes people. She said she didn't expect freedom, only peace. "They say I lost everything," she wrote in one letter, "but in truth, I only lost the illusion of love." Years later, her story was adapted into documentaries and podcasts, but no one ever fully understood her. Some said she was evil. Others said she was broken. But if anyone asked her who she really was, Camila would just smile and say, "A bride who woke up too late." 5 years had passed since that night in Cartagena. The world had moved on, new scandals, new headlines, but for Camila Rojas, time had stopped inside the gray walls of the San Isidro Women's Prison. Each morning began the same, the clang of metal doors, the footsteps of guards, and the faint smell of disinfectant mixing with damp air. Camila no longer looked like the woman in her wedding photos. Her hair had turned dull, her eyes softer, quieter. The anger that once burned inside her had faded into something else, a kind of hollow peace. She had learned to live with silence, to breathe through regret. Every week, she sat by the small barred window in her cell and wrote letters she never sent. Some were to her late husband, Andres. Others were to her mother, or to herself, to the girl she used to be before betrayal turned her heart into a weapon. "If love is a battlefield," she once wrote, "then I was never the soldier, only the wound." In prison, Camila taught other women how to read and write. Many of them had stories like hers, broken hearts, broken homes, broken dreams. She listened to them, helped them write their own confessions, and found in their pain a strange kind of forgiveness. They began calling her La Maestra, the teacher. One afternoon, a journalist came to interview her for a documentary about women who kill out of passion. The young reporter was nervous, clutching her notepad tightly. "Do you still believe in love?" she asked. Camila smiled faintly. "Yes," she said after a pause, "but not the kind that destroys. The kind that forgives." The journalist looked surprised. "Andres betrayed you. Valeria too. How can you forgive that?" Camila looked out the window, where a patch of sky was visible through the bars. "Because hatred is another kind of prison," she said. "And I've already served enough time in both." That night, Camila couldn't sleep. She lay awake thinking about the ocean, the waves crashing against the shore, the same sound that had once filled her wedding night. She realized she no longer saw the ocean as a memory of love, but as a reminder that even storms pass. Eventually, a few weeks later, a guard found her, sitting at her desk with her last letter folded neatly in front of her. She wasn't gone, just asleep, lost in a deep, dreamless peace. The letter read, "Greater than to whoever reads this. I am not asking for pity or forgiveness. I only want someone to know that I once loved so deeply it blinded me. And when I opened my eyes again, I was already too far gone. But love is not what ruined me. Silence did. If you ever love someone, speak before it's too late." The guard placed the letter in an envelope and gave it to the journalist who had visited weeks earlier. That letter became the closing line of the documentary, The Bride of Vengeance. Years later, her story was still discussed, not as a crime, but as a tragedy born from silence. Some called her a monster, others a victim. But to those who truly listened, Camila Rojas became something else entirely. A woman who learned too late that forgiveness is the only freedom left to the broken.